At just 38 years old, Lovy Elias had been found guilty, and the entire entertainment world had gone silent. Fans who once praised his charm and talent now stood shocked, trying to understand how everything changed so fast. You won't believe how quickly his life had turned upside down, but let me tell you, this moment did not come out of nowhere. For years, people had seen him as a rising star, confident, talented, and full of promise. But behind that smooth image, a very different story had been building quietly. This was how a single verdict had exposed the truth that had been hidden for so long. Elias had lived a life that looked perfect from the outside, filled with fame, attention, and admiration. But here is the shocking part. While the world had celebrated him, small cracks had already been forming in his life. Insiders later shared that he had faced pressures, personal struggles, and complicated partnerships that had slowly pushed him into decisions that changed everything. This is where it gets interesting. Fans had only seen his bright side, but the real story had been happening in the shadows, far away from cameras and applause. Even people close to him admitted they hadn't seen the full picture until it was too late. What made this story different was how deeply he had connected with his audience. People trusted him, believed in him, and followed every step of his journey. That was why the guilty verdict had hit everyone so hard. It wasn't just a legal decision. It was a blow to the image people had built of him in their minds. The craziest part was that afterward, it became clear that some early signs had been there, but no one noticed. The truth had been right in front of everyone, yet hidden at the same time. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and the man who once looked unstoppable now stood on the other side of the courtroom, waiting for a judgment that would change everything. As details of his past slowly came out, people understood that this verdict was not the result of one mistake. It was the outcome of years of choices, pressures, and missteps that kept building until they exploded into a major case. Elias had grown in an industry where success and risk always walked together. His charm had opened doors, but behind each opportunity, there had been challenges he never talked about. People who worked with him said he often took decisions quickly, trusting the wrong people at the wrong time. These hidden moments eventually shaped the case that shocked the entire entertainment world. But here is where the story began to twist even more. Some of the moments that played a role in his downfall were never shown in headlines. They happened quietly, behind walls, in meetings and messages that would later become key evidence. These unreported moments revealed a side of Elias that fans had never imagined. What the public had known was only half of his real life. The other half had been complicated, risky, and full of decisions that came back to haunt him. After the courtroom revealed the full story, it became clear that the events leading to Lovy Elias' guilty verdict were more complicated than anyone had imagined. For years, he had built a reputation as someone talented, charming, and always in control, but the truth was different. The court heard about multiple incidents, both personal and professional, that had slowly piled up over time. You won't believe how small decisions, overlooked by most people, eventually became part of a case that no one could ignore. Let me tell you, this is how all the pieces finally connected, forming a picture that stunned everyone who had admired him. The allegations were serious, and insiders explained that the evidence presented in court left little room for doubt. Emails, messages, and transaction records showed patterns of behavior that had quietly raised red flags for years. The craziest part was that fans and even colleagues had been blinded by his public image. People saw the talent, the charisma, the smiling selfies, but missed the hidden warning signs that now seem so obvious in hindsight. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and suddenly, a life built on admiration was overshadowed by the weight of legal trouble. During the trial, It became clear that his interactions with partners and collaborators had played a major role in the case. Some deals were mishandled, some agreements ignored, and others questioned in ways that created serious legal consequences. What makes this story different is that these weren't isolated mistakes. The evidence showed a series of actions that had consequences far beyond what anyone had expected. The public may have only seen headlines, but the courtroom revealed the full scope of how small misjudgments escalated into a situation that changed everything for Elias. The tension inside the courtroom was intense as witnesses shared what they knew. People listened to details of missteps, questionable choices, and private actions that had never been seen before. Some of the revelations were shocking, even to those who had followed his career closely. But here is the shocking part. The more the story unfolded, the more it became clear that this was not just about one bad decision. It was about a chain of events, a pattern of behavior, and a series of hidden moments that together led to a life-altering verdict. By the end of the trial sessions covered in this section, it was undeniable that Lovy Elias's life had taken a dramatic turn. From being a celebrated figure with fans all over the world, he now faced reality as a guilty man, and the public began to see him in a completely new light. What had once seemed untouchable was now fragile, and what had been celebrated had become controversial. This story was far from simple, and as more details came out, it only got darker and more complex. Once the verdict was announced, the shockwaves spread beyond the courtroom. Fans flooded social media with disbelief, anger, and confusion. You won't believe how quickly hashtags and discussions started trending as people tried to make sense of what had happened. Let me tell you, this is how a single court ruling turned into a global conversation. Supporters who had once idolized Lovy Elias were suddenly questioning everything they had believed about him. But here is the shocking part. Not everyone reacted the same way. While some turned away in disappointment, others stayed silent, trying to process the reality of the situation. Industry insiders began weighing in as well. Collaborators, colleagues, and even brands that had worked with Elias were forced to reconsider their ties. Deals were paused, projects delayed, and many wondered if his influence and legacy would survive this storm. This is where it gets interesting. Private messages, leaked communications, and behind-the-scenes information began surfacing online, revealing even more layers to the story. The public started to realize that the case had been more than a legal matter. It had been a chain reaction affecting every aspect of his career. Financial consequences were immediate. Sponsorships and endorsement deals were put on hold, partnerships were reviewed, and upcoming projects faced uncertainty. For someone whose career relied heavily on public trust and perception, the verdict was more than a legal outcome. It was a turning point that affected his reach, influence, and future opportunities. What makes this story different is how quickly the ripple effects moved, not just among fans, but throughout the entertainment industry itself. The fallout was everywhere, in news outlets, social media, and conversations between insiders, each adding new dimensions to the scandal. Despite the public scrutiny, Lovy Elias had to face the consequences personally. Sources revealed that he began dealing with the legal ramifications, trying to manage public relations, and considering ways to rebuild his reputation. The craziest part? Even at this stage, there were whispers of undisclosed details that could emerge, keeping everyone on edge. Destiny had taken an unexpected turn, and now every move he made was being watched, analyzed, and judged by millions. The story of his rise, fall, and potential recovery became a lesson for entertainers and public figures about accountability, responsibility, and the weight of private choices made in public life. Even as the world reacted, insiders hinted at more revelations behind the scenes. Private dealings, hidden messages, and undisclosed actions suggested that this story was far from over. What had begun as a courtroom verdict had turned into a complicated narrative about power, fame, mistakes, and consequences. By the end of this period, it was clear that Love Elias's journey was a cautionary tale, a drama filled with twists, and a story that would continue to captivate, shock, and intrigue people around the world. With the courtroom drama behind him, the question on everyone's mind was simple. What would happen next for Love Elias? At just 38, he faced a turning point that would define not only his career, but also how the world would remember him. You won't believe how quickly public perception shifted. Let me tell you, this is how a life once celebrated for talent and charm now became a story of caution, controversy, and lessons learned. Fans and insiders alike began analyzing every choice, every action, trying to understand how things had spiraled so quickly. But here is the shocking part. Even now, there were details emerging that no one had expected, keeping everyone guessing about what might surface next. Elias's immediate future involved navigating the legal consequences, rebuilding fractured relationships, and regaining public trust. He had to confront not only what the court had decided, but also the disappointment of millions who had once admired him. This is where it gets interesting. Some sources hinted that his journey toward redemption could take unexpected turns, revealing sides of him the public had never seen. He faced the challenge of showing accountability and honesty, a task far harder than any project or performance he had ever taken on. The broader impact of his case extended beyond his personal life. It sparked conversations about responsibility, ethics, and transparency in the entertainment world. Emerging artists and influencers began reflecting on the importance of careful decision-making, knowing that even minor missteps could escalate into life-changing consequences. The craziest part was seeing how quickly people learned from his mistakes, while simultaneously speculating about the next chapter in his story. Destiny had taken an unexpected turn, but the path forward remained uncertain, filled with both risk and potential for growth. Despite the challenges, some believed that redemption was possible. History had shown that public figures could rebuild their reputation after major controversies, but it required consistent effort, transparency, and genuine personal growth. What makes the story different is that while the verdict marked an ending of one chapter, it also opened the door to a new narrative, one where Elias could redefine his legacy. Fans and critics watched closely, waiting to see if he would rise again or fade away under the weight of past mistakes. In the end, the story of Love Elias became more than just a legal headline. It became a tale of fame, accountability, and the fragile line between public admiration and personal responsibility. The revelations, the courtroom drama, and the public fallout all served as a reminder that no one is immune to the consequences of their choices. And here's the suspenseful part that keeps people talking. While the verdict was final, the full story was still unfolding. More twists, revelations, and unexpected developments could emerge at any moment, ensuring that the world would remain hooked on the saga of Love Elias for years to come.